Hank Aaron, oh, this is a great story. He was the minor league director when I was drafted in 1976. I was playing semi-pro baseball out in Eureka, California. My dad was at my house. Hank Aaron was the minor league director. I get drafted in the 5th round of 1976. Hank Aaron calls my house. My dad answers the phone. And he says, Mr. Benedict? He said, yeah. He goes, this is Hank Aaron, Atlanta Braves. He says, yeah, right. Hangs up. Hank Aaron, just true story. Hank calls back, says the same thing. Mr. Benedict, your son Bruce Benedict? Yeah, right. Hangs up. Hangs up on Hank Aaron. Finally, the 3rd time, he said, Dave, we drafted your son in the 5th round. Please don't hang up, whatever. So I said to my dad's dying dad, I said, Dad, you're the only human being in the history of the world in communication that's hung up on Hank Aaron twice on a phone call. But that happened. My dad was in Omaha, Nebraska. After that, my dad called me. I was in Eureka, California, playing for the Humboldt State Crabs, and then flew to Atlanta and worked out, and then signed.
I might say about Hank, I was in the major leagues when he took over the minor leagues, so I didn't really have like direct contact with him, but he came down and talked to me, about hitting every once in a while, but he never came down unless he was invited. I'm sure he was up there a lot of times in his office, Fulton County Stadium, going, what is Murph doing? But he always respected our hitting coaches, and when he came down there and talked to me about hitting, I'd be like in the back of my mind, yeah, you're Hank Aaron, man. It's like when I met Ted Williams at the Hall of Fame game one year, guys. Remember we used to do that? He watched all the games on TBS. And he goes, Dave Murphy, yeah, good to meet you. This is Ted Williams. You got to get a better pitch to hit. I'm like, you're Ted Williams, man. That's easy for you to say. You struck out 20 times a year. Anyway.
You mentioned maybe Snit can shed some light on this a little bit because he called all the time. We lost Phil Negro in the last year. And ladies and gentlemen, maybe the finest Hall of Famer, maybe of all time that you would ever come across in a nice person.
And it was pretty amazing to have Hank and Nuxie. Some really great individuals. Let me just ask Benny this. What did Nuxie say about you in the Hall of Fame?
Every place I ever went with Phil, and we did some charity stuff every year, the first thing he said, he goes, I'm not in the Hall of Fame without him.
Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Welcome into On Deck. As always, thank you so much for checking out the video. Really do appreciate it. While you're here, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck and, of course, with your Atlanta Braves. Want to send a thank you, number one, to all of you for tuning in late. I know we're starting late, but hey, the game went on late, and wanted to talk to you guys at some point this week. This was our best opportunity. So thank you to those who are watching live. If you're listening on the replay, we love you just as much. That said, let's get into it. The Braves versus the Rockies tonight. The Braves do take the win 3-1. I thought if you want to have a star of the night, I think the guy on the mound, Charlie Morton, pitched pretty well, especially considering he's pitching in Coors Field. He threw 6 innings, gave up 3 hits, only 1 earned run, and he had 8 strikeouts. So pretty good day for Charlie Morton. And as we get closer to the postseason, every time I see Morton, he looks like in postseason form. And that is an encouraging sight, especially when the back end of the rotation isn't quite as secure. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But no, it was a great game tonight. Of course, Ozuna got his 30th homer. He's now the 3rd Brave to do that behind Olsen and Riley. There are 2 more Braves that have a chance to get there, and that is, of course, Acuna, who is at 29, and Albies, who is at 28. Below that, you go straight to 20 homers. And Sean Murphy and Eddie Rosario currently have 20 homers. If the Braves can get 5 guys over 30, they will, of course, tie the record set by the 2019 Minnesota Twins that had 5 30 home run players. So we'll see what happens there. They're right there, and it seems to be that they're going to do it, but only time will tell. So we're again in the midst of this series with Colorado. It's been a very interesting series. I think the thing that kind of jumps off the page is Ronald Acuna being tackled on the field. And I watched this live, as I'm sure many of you did, and in the moment, it was very scary because you don't really see what's happening. You just hear it from Peter Moylan and Brandon Gowden, and when the camera's not on it and you hear someone has rushed Ronald Acuna, you just never know what that might mean. And when you're watching the broadcast, it's just a scary thing to hear. And to be honest with you, even when I saw Acuna smiling, I wasn't relieved until we heard from him after the game that it seems that the fans really just wanted to take a picture with him or whatever the case may be. Either way, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable for a number of reasons, and this is fan footage that captured the moment. And, usually when someone rushes the field, it's kind of lighthearted, although illegal. It is kind of lighthearted, and it's not really a scary moment. But when you see Acuna, kind of get bum rushed by two guys, and both of those guys are later then tackled by security, and Acuna is standing off to the side, it's just not a good look. It's not a good look for the Colorado Rockies organization. It's not a good look for the security team. Who's to blame here? You can blame security. I would blame the two guys that ran on the field and did this, but you can blame security if you want. I don't see that. This is just one of those situations that's really an unfortunate event more than anything. And I really wanted to talk about this tonight because, ultimately this kind of thing does happen, and it's unfortunate. You're trying to enjoy a baseball game. Ronald Acuna is trying to do something that no one has ever done, be the first 30-60 man. He's having a terrific season. I think the front runner to the NL MVP. And it's just unfortunate. You never want to see anything like this. And I will say it was kind of funny in the sense of hearing Peter Moylan, rolling up his sleeves and wanting to go down there and jump in the fray. But either way, it's unacceptable. And if you're out there and you've ever had the thought to go running on the field, I can assure you, I know a couple of those guys that work at Truist Park and do that job. You don't want to do it. It's unacceptable. You will be banned for life. And I really just wanted to take a second at the top of the show and address that. And I'm glad that there's fan footage out there so we kind of saw what happened, because you're really kind of left to wonder and you didn't know what the situation was. Again, not the first time it's happened. There will be many more, I'm sure. I hope Colorado does something to address it. I saw the David Sampson from Nothing Personal with David Sampson. If you don't know, he's a former general manager for the Miami Marlins. He actually addressed this topic today on his show, and he basically said that if he was the GM for the Braves, i.e. Alex Anthopoulos, he would be calling the Colorado Rockies and asking what gives. And I think a conversation probably happened. I don't know if it was as hostile as he made it out to be, but I definitely think that they're going to have to do something to greater enforce security. And again, when I watched it live, it was definitely, I kind of had it on at work in the background, and I just hear someone has rushed Ronald Acuna on the field. Two people have jumped Ronald Acuna. And the thing is, these guys didn't mean any harm. They shouldn't be vilified or anything like that. They shouldn't be glorified either, let me make clear. But you never know what someone's intentions are. I will say it's a credit to security, the stadium security, that they didn't have a weapon or they didn't have anything that could induce harm other than themselves. But either way, it's unacceptable from the fans' perspective. It's unacceptable from a security perspective. It's really just an unfortunate situation all the way around. The only positive takeaway is that Ronald Acuna is just fine. And hopefully that will continue to be the case. The Braves do have one more game with the Rockies tomorrow night. They look to sweep, and hopefully they will. After that, they head to face the LA Dodgers, and that'll be an exciting series. So let's get back to baseball. Let's get away from that topic. Let's get back to baseball. I mentioned that tomorrow the Braves do take on the Colorado Rockies in what will be the finale to the series. And there's something that's pretty interesting. The Braves, as of earlier this afternoon, had yet to announce a starting pitcher for tomorrow. And I know a lot of you guys are going to get excited when I mention this. 13 hours ago, or really just yesterday, the Braves, in the same conversation of bringing Ozzy Albies back, which we'll talk about in a minute, they also brought up and activated Darius Vines. Darius Vines is a guy who you guys have brought up to me on multiple occasions. Tyler, have you heard about this Darius Vines guy? I mean, back when he was in single A, double A, didn't matter. He's had a pretty interesting minor league career. He kind of jump-started with straight from, rookie ball to 1A ball, and then straight to double A. And, of course, COVID didn't help his career early on, but he's had a really interesting career. He probably would have already been called up had he not been dealing with inflammation for this year. He is currently the 10th ranked prospect in the Braves organization. He was drafted in the 7th round in 2019. Again, out for much of this year due to inflammation. But in the minors this year, he's 2-2 with a 2.70 ERA. His strikeout per 9 rate's pretty good. It's 9.6, and his walk rate's pretty good as well, 2.9. He's had 9 starts in the minor leagues this year, 5 of those in AAA. So take, every stat you look at in the minors, you kind of have to take with a grain of salt to some degree because it varies across, the league, and it's small sample size. When it comes to minor leaguers, it's always interesting when a guy is on your radar for a long time. So what can you expect of him as a pitcher tomorrow night if he was to maybe get the start, which I think is possible? Not to say it's likely, but I do think it's possible. I haven't seen anybody announce anything yet. If that changes, I'm live, so please do alert me. I would love to know. But I have not seen anybody announce that he will be the starter. But I will say that making your big league debut in Coors Field is probably not ideal, but it actually may favor Darius Vines. Darius Vines is a bit of a throwback pitcher by all accounts. He's not a big fastball guy. He's not going to blow you away with 98. He's a 90 mile per hour at his most. I mean, he's coming back from inflammation. That's part of it, but he's never been a blow you away guy. That's just not his thing. His real strength is avoiding hard contact. Similar to Michael Soroka in that respect. I don't think he's got the sinker quite as much, but he's got a great changeup. That is one thing that if he does pitch tomorrow night, if he does pitch tomorrow night, you'll get a front row seat to that. I think it'll be an interesting watch whether he's called in as a starter, whether he's called in as a reliever. But with the addition of Darius Vines, you have to also take a look at the rest of the team, because I believe it's August 31st that the waiver wire deadline that's the real trade deadline, where all trades are done, and you have to have anybody that you want on your postseason roster has to be on your 40-man. That's essentially what the deadline means. So come Friday, come this weekend, it'll be very exciting and very interesting to just look through those rosters and kind of figure it out and see, okay, well, how can we piece together our postseason roster? Because after that, there is no making, amends. There is no trading for someone else. There is no signing a free agent. You can sign them and they can play, but not in the postseason. So that is just something to be aware of. Speaking of which, we will address the Los Angeles Angels in their ordeal later on in the show. So please do stay around for that. I know you guys are going to want to ask questions. I know you guys are going to want to talk to me tonight. It is a late one, so I won't be here quite as long as usual. I do plan to be here for a while, though. Remember, Super Chats do get you priority. They do put you at the first of the line, and they do help the channel, so please do consider leaving one of those. But the biggest thing you can do is liking the video, subscribing to the channel, hitting the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on with your Atlanta Braves. We really would appreciate any kind of support. The easiest thing for you to do, though, like the video, subscribe. It's free, doesn't cost you a dime. Also, so you bring in Darius Vines. I think what the real goal with bringing in Vines is not so much, giving him a debut, or maybe I think it's more so, okay, what kind of weapon can this guy be in a postseason environment? Can he help us bridge the gap until Kyle Wright's back? I think it's more of that question. There's been so many different starting pitchers this year, and it's hard to believe, it's really hard to believe that, for me anyway, it's hard to believe that the Braves have such a good record. They have the best record in baseball, even amidst all of the, mishaps with the starting rotation. I mean, anytime your bullpen isn't sound, that doesn't help. But when your starting rotation is down, you're not meant to win this many games. But then you get Max Fried back. I mean, we've talked about that all year. That's been one of the most talked about topics on the channel all year, is the fact that Max Fried and Kyle Wright have been out. But the fact that the Braves have been able to win is a testament to it, and it's a testament to the offense, which we all know how good they are. But again, with the addition of Darius Vines, the Braves also did welcome back Ozzy Albies, and we all are very aware of what he brings to the team's energy. And it's good to have him back. Anytime you bring back an all-star, but an all-star second baseman, the guy that kind of gets everybody going, especially Ronald Acuna, I think it's a good thing. And you know what? If the Braves are currently in a lull, I think Ozzy Albies, having him back, will get them right back out of it. But they're not in a lull. So, they just keep... it's crazy how they lose talent. They lose players to injury or to whatever the case may be. And when they leave, it's kind of like they never left in a way, because Nicky Lopez was able to hold it down. Vaughn Grissom, when called upon, was able to hold it down. It says so much about our depth, and I think that's only positive things, especially when you're talking about heading towards the postseason. Again, the Braves do wrap up their series against Colorado tomorrow, and after that, they do have a 4-game set with the Los Angeles Dodgers. This series is very important for a number of reasons. Number one, I wrote a script here, and initially I wrote, this could be a foreshadowing. I'm changing that to, this will be a foreshadowing of the NLCS. This is what we expect the NLCS to come down to, the Braves versus the Dodgers, to find out who goes on to the World Series. One way or another, that is the likely scenario. Number two, the Dodgers passed the Braves this week. I don't know if you guys saw this, in Major League Baseball's power rankings. Do I really care about some arbitrary ranking system of Major League Baseball teams according to who's doing what right now? Not really. But it is pretty interesting. It would be a nice touch on the season if the Braves can kind of get 3 out of 4, maybe sweep the Dodgers. That would be phenomenal if that were able to happen. But the Dodgers, no doubt about it, they're on a roll. That's why they overstepped the Braves in the MLB power rankings without even having the best record in baseball, I might add. But it is undeniable. They've won, entering play today at least, they have won 21 out of their last 25. Mookie Betts has been on fire. Freddie Freeman, we know what he's capable of. He's been great too. The other thing that you have to consider when you're facing the Dodgers, and this is just something, kind of off topic in a way, but the potential MVP award, right? Because for the majority of the season, it's been clear to most baseball people that Ronald Acuna Jr. is by far the National League MVP. That is until the past month or so. Mookie Betts has really stepped up. If you compare their stats, it's really all about what you're looking for. Acuna is having, again, he's leading the league in stolen bases. He's potentially going to be the first 30-60 man in baseball history. He's having an unprecedented season. And to be honest with you, I would give Acuna the MVP over Mookie. But Mookie is leading in slug. He's leading in OPS plus. He was an all-star this year. He's having a great year, not to mention he has 35 homers. He is having a great year. If you ask me, Tyler, well, what's your argument for Acuna? Sure, they both lead in different things, but what is your argument for Acuna? I'm going to actually quote the unpaid intern Jacob Redmond, because he had actually a pretty good quote earlier tonight. Give me just a second. I actually wrote this down. My little brother said this, and I wrote this down. Quote, in any other year, Mookie Betts' 2023 campaign could very well be an MVP season. But due to the scarcity, big word there, of Ronald Acuna's accomplishments, it is very hard to justify giving it to anyone else. And that's the thing, right? Like a couple of years ago, or I guess last year, when Judge was on his campaign for 62 homers or whatever. Yeah, 62 homers when he was on that campaign. Any other year, Shohei Ohtani's performance would have been an MVP season. But because Judge did something so unforeseen and historic, I think that's kind of the difference. But in this case, it's more about what Ronald Acuna Jr. does that nobody else does. When you watch Acuna every day and you see what he does on the base pass, you see, the uncomfortableness of the pitcher, that hasn't been seen in baseball for quite a long time. You add the power numbers with that, I think to me it's pretty obvious that Acuna should be the MVP. Plus, he's done it all year long. He is a huge part of what this Braves team has done. They're, potentially going to, get the team home run record at some point. So for me, I think it's obvious. But that debate will go on. That debate will last for a long time. Again, if I had a vote, it would be Ronald Acuna Jr., but he could prove why he deserves it going head-to-head against the Dodgers coming up later this week. Just something to kind of keep an eye on as a fan. Number 4, and this is the most important thing. This is why you need to watch this series. This is why you need to watch the remainder of the year. It's more important over any kind of MLB power ranking. It's more important than any MVP award. I could care less about that as opposed to having home field advantage for the NLCS and for the World Series. That's right. Whoever has the best record has home field advantage. And if the Dodgers take home field advantage, I think they're 3 or 4 games back right now. If they take that, they then would have home field advantage, and they'd have momentum. You could argue they'd have momentum going into the NLCS because they would have robbed the Braves of having that. So it's just something to consider. To me, I think the Braves are on a path to do what they've done all year. I don't see that changing just in the next month. I really don't. I think they've been on such a good pace. I think they have the best depth in baseball, considering who they've lost, considering what they've done. Even so, I think they have the best depth, and I think that's going to help them as they go on through the rest of the year, and they're only going to get people back. Ozzie Albies was out for 2 weeks, but Kyle Wright's making rehab starts, and it wouldn't surprise me if Kyle Wright, he's on the IL, but just keep an eye on the 40-man. Keep an eye on Michael Soroka's name. Keep an eye on Dylan Dodd, Jared Schuster, because those are the guys that may get called upon in the bullpen, in the postseason for long relief or whatever the case may be. Just something to keep an eye on. But Kyle Wright, I'm really intrigued with where his development is. We'll see. But that's my thoughts on that. I see CeeLo's comments, and I want to shoot a thank you to CeeLo. He always plugs my show, and I want to plug him real quick. If you guys don't watch On The Go with CeeLo during Braves games, you're missing out. I think he got pied in the face earlier as a celebration for 7,000 subs. So it's worth taking a look at. It's worth joining the community. Again, he always plugs the show. He's a big supporter of the channel. He says, I think this whole Mookie MVP thing is hype for this weekend. I definitely think that is part of it. I think, it's also the fact that he's in LA. He has the LA media on his side, right? That's just kind of par for the course. We know how they are. We've seen it firsthand here with, we saw how much MLB promoted Freddie Freeman when he was in Atlanta. The last couple of years, sure, but when he went to LA, it was a drastic turn, and I think that's kind of part of it too. But yeah, that's kind of my takeaway. I think this series with the Dodgers is very important. I know CeeLo will be live for it. We will do content on it. It's a very big deal. I don't want you to overlook it. Now, all that said, I did a short on the channel earlier today. I dropped it on the channel. I was asked on a radio talk show a couple of days ago, am I worried about the Dodgers possibly taking over as the best team in baseball, at least in terms of the best record? And the honest answer is no, because I don't think the team is worried about that, in the sense that, number one, I'm confident in this Braves team I'm confident in this Braves team to take home the best record in baseball. I'm confident in that. We've seen it all year. Also, I'm more worried about how healthy they're going to be. I don't want them to go all out at the end of the season just to get the best record in baseball, because I watched them do something similar last year against the Mets. Go out and do your best to get, the division all up until the second to last series of the year. And then, you get to the postseason, and it just seemed to me like they were kind of gassed. The players won't tell you that was the case. The manager won't tell you that's the case, but the eye test probably will. That's what I saw. I kind of hope they don't do that. I would like them to get the best record in baseball, but I don't see them needing to risk life and limb to do that. I think they can do that without it being a chore, right? I think they can kind of just keep the pace they're on, and they'll be fine. The Dodgers have been playing out of their mind, no doubt about that. But I think also the Braves are good enough to keep pace with them, if not exceed it. I mean, we're sitting here acting like we're worried about it after a win tonight, after they've already won the last two series. I just don't see how the Dodgers are going to catch up. Plus, the Braves, I think, again, have a 3 to 4 game lead over the Dodgers for the best record in baseball. So I don't think it's worth worrying about. I don't want to worry you about it. That's my point here. I think the Braves are going to be just fine either way. I would much rather have home field advantage, though. No doubt about it. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and then we're going to get into your comments on the channel. By the way, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay updated. The other thing I wanted to talk about, it's what all of baseball has been talking about. The Angels, of course, made some moves today in relation to the waiver wire. This is from Jeff Passan, quote, breaking, the Los Angeles Dodgers have placed starter Lucas Giolito, relievers Matt Moore and Ronaldo Lopez, and outfielders Hunter Renfroe and Randall Grichuk on waivers. Sources tell ESPN, huge potential playoffs implications. All can be claimed by teams for free on Thursday. Now, Thursday is, of course, a couple of days away. Here's the thing. The Braves, and I saw someone mention this earlier, the Braves are currently last in line for any kind of waiver wire pickup. And the moment these guys are claimed, they're gone. This is a salary dump period for the Angels. And I can't wait to drop this short. I'm dropping it right after I get off of here. I kind of called this for the Angels. I said at the deadline while we were live on the air, just like I am right now, I told you guys that I thought it was stupid that they were not trading away Shohei Ohtani. And it's with no disrespect to the Angels organization, no disrespect to any of their players. I just think it's stupid because where they were at the time, they were not competing for a playoff spot, really. They didn't have a great shot. Plus, they had just lost Trout. And now we're seeing the repercussions of that. We're seeing them kind of desperately get below the tax threshold by going to the waiver wire, getting rid of Grichuk, who they got at the deadline. I believe they also got Ronaldo Lopez at the deadline. So again, it's not exactly throwing up the white flag, I wouldn't say, but it's pretty obvious they knew that it was kind of a mistake to go all in at the trade deadline. And that's, you have to look at what you have and what you don't. The Angels didn't have an awful lot at the trade deadline. I didn't think they had enough to really make a push. And that short will be coming out soon. Don't worry about it. You'll see that on the channel by the end of, right after the show, I'll probably drop it on there. But let's talk about what the Angels left behind. Of course, Lucas Giolito has gotten most of the attention, mostly because he's a starting pitcher. That's to be expected. He's got a 4.45 ERA. That runs pretty true. He's got a 4.95 FIP on the year. So again, that's what you're going to get out of Giolito. 7-11, like the gas station for a win-loss record. But keep in mind, hasn't exactly been on the best teams. 2.1 WAR. It's not terrible. He's got worse stats in Anaheim, though. And that trend seems to follow Anaheim. And keep in mind, I am not an Angels hater by any stretch. I just think they have a terrible front office, and I'll leave it at that. They don't know when to kind of rebuild, and I think they're kind of learning the hard way. Giolito was an all-star back in 2019. I think he'll be off their hands fairly soon. I think a lot of teams will be after him. If there was an option for the Braves to get one of these guys, I think it would be Matt Moore. if he's available. Remember, the Braves are last in line to get any kind of waiver wire options because they have the best record in baseball. They are number 30. But Matt Moore is a lefty reliever. He's got a 2.30 ERA. FIP's a little higher, 3.58. Strikeout per nine's good, 9.8. And he's got a 3.92 strikeout per walk rate. I've told you all year long I thought they needed to add on lefty relievers. They did that at the deadline. I think they would have done it a step further if they could. This may be an easy option to go pick up the salary and move on if he's available. Although, again, they got to make it through 30 teams before that even becomes a possibility. I think it's kind of unlikely, but if there was a Braves option to get, that would be who I would get. Reynaldo Lopez, he's a righty reliever, 3.86 ERA, 3.94 FIP. I think he's going somewhere. His strikeout rate's great, 11.9. His strikeout per walk rate's pretty good, 2.54. I think he's going somewhere. I think a team will definitely pick him up. A contender will pick him up. Anybody that needs bullpen help, and who doesn't need bullpen help at this time of year. Hunter Renfroe. Kind of unfortunate to see him on here. Right fielder, 239 average, 300 on base. He's got 18 homers. He could be a solid bench bat for a contender. I think he'll be gone as well. Randall Grichuk, this is one of the trade deadline acquisitions. Grichuk, by the way, hits bombs if you don't know who he is. This year, though, has had a kind of a rough time. He's only hit, I think, 11 homers. He's got a 261 average, 317 on base. He did have better numbers in Colorado. That kind of goes without saying before he was traded. But he also, take this into consideration, he also has better numbers not being on the Angels. And I think, frankly, that is a trend that is all too common when it comes to anybody on the Angels. You know, they haven't been to the playoffs but once in the last 12 years. That's the entirety of Mike Trout's career. You're starting to hear rumors of Mike Trout possibly wanting out, might request a trade. I saw AJ Przinsky talking about that on his podcast. It's certainly a possibility. I think Shohei Ohtani, if he's smart, will find his way out of there. And this is all just to tell you that, anytime the trade deadline rolls around, the Angels aren't alone in this, but they're one of the worst when it comes to looking at what they have and analyzing it and kind of taking it and moving on. Right? Because when you look at the Braves, it's clear that they're a contender. When you look at some other teams, it's clear that they're a contender. But when you look at teams like the Angels, when you look at teams, frankly, like the Padres, they're hot and cold. There's teams like that just, to me, it seems like they should kind of start from the top. And so far, that has not been the case for the Anaheim Angels. So we will see what happens with that. But that's my takeaway for what happened today with the Angels. They were not alone. Other teams were making moves. I saw Donaldson got released. Hate that for him. He's had kind of a rough year, injury-prone year. I hope he gets picked up by somebody. If not, for the remainder of the season for next year. He is a fan favorite for the Braves, always will be for that 2019 season. I personally have met Josh Donaldson, and what a character that guy is, I'll just tell you. We're not going to be here long. Again, it's late, but we are going to answer some of your questions. Remember, Super Chats do get priority. If I skip your questions, Super Chat's the best way to get it to me, make sure I read it, but I will have to skip some. Dr. Dusty says, hey, Tyler, got my hat in and loving it. It's breaking in nicely. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you buying the merch, and that's a great time for me to go ahead and plug Shop on Deck. You see the QR code below. We have plenty of products there, stickers, shirts, hoodies. He mentioned hats, bottles, all kinds of stuff on the On Deck shop. Pennants. There's all kinds of things. If you want something with an On Deck logo, there are plenty of options there. And again, it supports the channel. We're trying to grow. We're trying to get better. And it would really help us if not only you bought something from us, but also if you repped us. And I really appreciate Dr. Dusty for picking up a hat. And there's plenty more that you can go get and take a look at. Just remember, the QR code is on your screen at all times down below. It's right over there. And the link is also down below as well. Thank you for that. Matthew says, Tyler, how do you feel about what the Angels did today? This is what we just talked about. Doesn't it hurt the Braves because they will never be able to claim any of those players since they are last in the waiver order? I wouldn't say it hurts the Braves. It doesn't really benefit them. And to be honest with, the other thing is the last 15 of those aren't really contenders. So it's really the top 15. They don't necessarily have to make it through the top 30. They got to make it through the top 15. So it's less than what we make it out to be, but at the same time, if they're good and there's a contender out there, they're going to pick those guys up. So that's kind of my takeaway. Frank Patterson says, oh, sorry, you're having a conversation. Map, hey Tyler, should the Braves take a flyer on Josh Donaldson again? We don't have any corner infield depth, and JD would be dirt cheap and still hits the ball hard. What about Thor? Any chance at Giolito? I think Giolito is going to be picked up quick. That's just my takeaway from it. I don't see how it couldn't be. I think starting pitching is at such a premium. That's why the Angels put him out there. They want somebody to take that salary, and somebody will. In terms of the relievers, I think that's more likely. In terms of Donaldson, I find it very unlikely. And if we do pick him up, he's going to be right back in that Charlie Culberson role, not finding a lot of at-bats, plus he's coming off of injury. I mean, I wouldn't mind it, but I don't think it would be taken very seriously. And I don't see them doing it right now. Plus, he wouldn't be healthy for another couple of weeks. I mean, maybe somebody does. I don't see the Braves doing it. I would just be kind of surprised. In terms of Thor, I mean, maybe. I just don't see it, honestly. Frank Patterson says, will the Braves reach 100 wins this year? Will the Braves get the franchise record for wins this year? The franchise record's a little bit more difficult. I think 100 wins is very doable. They're at 86 right now. In fact, I'm going to pull up just the schedule and kind of get a look at it. They're at 86 wins right now, and I want to see how many more games they have. Well, dadgummit. Let me see. Yeah, so 86 and 45. Let me do some quick math here. So they have about 29 more games to get. Yeah, if they play right around 500, they'll get 100 wins. But in terms of the franchise record, that might be more difficult. I think it's certainly possible, though. Guys, we're going to wrap it up here in just a minute. I really do appreciate all you guys tuning in. And I really do. We got to get out of here. It's getting late. But again, thank you so much for tuning in. We will have more content tomorrow. Again, check out the shorts, check out the channel, check out the interviews, all that good stuff. We really do appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next time right here at On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.